We are constantly told to do our own research. But doing that requires you to be an epidemiologist on Monday, a military strategist on Tuesday, and a macroeconomist by Wednesday. The sheer volume of claims hitting your feed mathematically outpaces your ability to verify them. Nobody has the time or the cognitive bandwidth to properly fact-check the internet. Look at this chart mapping the return on your attention. Traditional fact-checking lives in the top right corner. High accuracy, but immense effort. Down in the bottom right are endless rabbit holes. Here, you pour effort into videos and walk away with zero factual accuracy. Surviving internet-scale media isn't about becoming a subject matter expert in every field. It's about ruthlessly managing your cognitive bandwidth. When you are scrolling through that daily avalanche of alerts and hot takes, it is easy to get burned. You notice that institutions make mistakes, or that authorities occasionally lie. And the natural defense mechanism is to overcorrect. You decide to trust absolutely no one. Doubting everything equally leaves you just as broken as believing everything. Blank check skepticism makes you incredibly easy to manipulate because bad actors know you've discarded the tools to measure reality. Instead, the rational alternative is calibrated trust. We accept that Australia exists, or that the sun is 93 million miles away, without personally verifying it. Suspending skepticism for established, low-stakes facts is a necessary cognitive time-saver. And this brings us to source triage. Instead of trying to verify the claim itself, which you don't have the time or expertise to do, you evaluate the behavioral signals around the claim. You abandon the impossible quest for absolute certainty. In exchange, you get high speed and probabilistic accuracy. You won't always be right, but you'll be systematically less wrong with almost no effort at all. The first triage filter requires zero domain knowledge to execute. You simply look at the credential asymmetry between the people making the claim and the people rejecting it. If you have one telegenic guy with a book to sell on one side and thousands of credentialed experts across rival countries on the other, that's your signal. You don't need a degree in atmospheric chemistry to weigh that scale. The second filter requires you to look at demeanor and tone. Bad faith actors manufacture urgency. They yell in all caps and use mockery to build a tribal community rather than foster genuine inquiry. The heat is a deliberate tactic. Reputable sources, on the other hand, tend to be calm. They rely on specific details rather than demonizing their opponents. If the person delivering the information desperately needs you to feel something before you have a chance to check their work, step away. Next, evaluate how a source responds to depth. An actual specialist becomes more interesting and precise the longer they stay on a single, narrow detail. Charlatans skim the surface. The moment they are pressed on actual technical mechanics, they deploy the expertise dodge. They will tell you to do your own research or claim the experts are bought off. The pivot itself exposes them. Then there is the Gish Gallop. This is the strategy of flooding a debate with a high volume of unverified claims faster than anyone can practically rebut them. They declare victory over whatever went unanswered. Filter 4 evaluates the grammar of bad faith. Be highly suspicious of anyone whose primary mode of communication is just asking questions. Framing an accusation as a dangling question provides the speaker with plausible deniability, while entirely shifting the burden of proof onto you. They will often point to what's missing, insisting that hidden files or silenced voices are the real proof. But real investigations rely on the presence of evidence, not the absence of it. A persistent refusal to commit to a firm, falsifiable position proves the source isn't investigating reality, they are performing for an audience. When you're dealing with massive, systemic claims, apply the scale and time test. Real conspiracies inevitably leak. Time and massive human scale are the natural enemies of secrets. Actual historical cover-ups always produce defectors, paper trails, and whistleblowers who can't stomach the lie. Compare that to claims requiring thousands of government employees to stay perfectly silent for over half a century. If a debate hasn't tipped after 50 years, it's not an unresolved question, it's a permanent fandom. This leads us to epistemic convergence, the powerful signal generated when bitter rivals independently agree on the same facts. During the space race, American validation of the Apollo program was expected, but when Soviet scientists confirmed that NASA landed on the moon, that validation did the heavy epistemic work. Convergence across rival ideologies is a rock-solid metric for truth. If an explanation has to metastasize into infinite, leak-proof complexity just to avoid being disproven, you aren't looking at a factual claim. You're looking at a protected worldview. Let's look at this diagram mapping out how to apply these rules in the real world. Your strategy has to change entirely depending on your environment. For the time-poor scroller, the protocol is strict. Ruthlessly apply those 5 triage filters. The moment you spot the behavioral tells of a bad faith actor, permanently revoke your attention and keep moving. But when you are dealing with a radicalized friend or family member, you have to abandon the logic filters entirely. People don't reason their way into conspiracy beliefs, which means they cannot be reasoned out of them. The belief is doing a job. Attacking the facts feels like a direct attack on their identity and their community. Stop arguing the object-level facts. Instead, shift the conversation. Ask them one specific question. How would we know if we were wrong? People leave conspiracy communities through trusted relationships. If you make holding the belief cost them your friendship, they will choose the belief. Preserving the relationship is the only viable exit ramp you can offer. True expertise compresses the world into actionable, specific understanding. Charlatans expand it into endless noise. Mastering source triage doesn't make you an expert in everything. It simply gives you the tools to guard your most valuable resource, your attention.